America is changing very rapidly, ladies and gentlemen. And President Trump doesn't seem to acknowledge this. He probably doesn't even know. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. America is slowly becoming a very young country. The younger people, especially of color, are now dominating in size. And the white population is shrinking fast. And what's even worse for them is we already know the younger among the white are being taken out by drugs and suicide and all types of things. And the older population is actually their last biggest within their group. So they are now an older group in America, and everybody else is younger. And it's really even at the point where it wouldn't even be appropriate to even call the younger of color the minority anymore because actually they're not. Okay, it's time to switch labels. They are the minority, our people are the majority. And as their older population dies out, that's going to become more apparent that they are absolutely the shrinking population here. All right, this came out in the Atlantic today, and I will leave the link to this article in the description box. Trump's immigration agenda makes a fundamental miscalculation. Like many of Trump's policy, the White House recent embrace of a plan to cut legal immigration in half rests on a fundamental misunderstanding of the economic relationship between the brown and the gray. That's the phrase we've applied to America's increasingly diverse younger generations and its predominantly white older population. Today's kids of color represent nearly half of Americans 19 years old and younger, and exactly half of the under 10 population. As Brookings Institute demographer William Frey recently calculated from census data, the absolute number of white kids under 15 declined in 41 of 50 states from 2010 to 2016, while the number of minority kids increased in 46 states. Then it wouldn't be appropriate to call them minority kids because they're now outnumbering the Caucasian kids. Meanwhile, whites compose of almost four-fifths of all Americans age 65 and older, and over two-thirds of the population age 45 to 64. Put another way, while nearly half of all whites today are 45 or older, nearly half of all non whites are 30 years or younger. On many fronts, Trump effectively treats these two groups as competitors in a zero sum struggle and then looks to advantage the gray. That instinct is evident, for instance, in the president's determination to slash spending on federal programs that invest in productivity, future generations such as education and scientific research, while cutting taxes for mostly white families in the top income brackets and protecting entitlements for mostly white elderly. It resurfaced in the Justice Department opposition to affirmative action programs in higher education, and it pulses through his push to tightly squeeze the future flow of legal immigrants. On these fronts and others, Trump's policy failed to recognize the interdependence of the brown and gray rather than fundamentally competing with younger America. Older America needs it to succeed. With the number of younger whites shrinking and the kaleidoscopically diverse millenniums and postmillenniums, as well as the potential illegal immigrants who might join them, constitute much of the nation's future workers, consumers, and taxpayers. The country, mostly white older population, need a growing workforce to propel more young people into the middle class to generate the payroll taxes that sustain Social Security and Medicare. Though political divides obscure the link, there is no financial security for the gray without economic opportunity for the brown. The immigration debates captures this dynamic. At his contentious press briefing last week, White House senior policy advisor Stephen Miller sold Trump's endorsement of legislation from Republican senators Tom Cotton of Arkansas and David Perdue of Georgia to cut legal immigration in half and favor higher skilled workers as a way to protect the um, economic interests of lower skilled native born workers. But the most thorough economic research has concluded that immigration poses a very limited threat to those Americans. The National Academy of Science, in an exhaustive study last fall, found little evidence that increased immigration significantly affected employment levels for native born workers. The Academy did find indications immigration has pressured wages for lower skilled worker, and even those effects very small then measured over a period of 10 years or more. They were so confined largely to recent immigrants and native born workers who didn't finish high school, groups that constitute a small share of the overall workforce. All right. Non white immigrants and their children will be prime contributors to Social Security and Medicare. Yeah, well, that would be true, especially if the population is shifting as fast as it is. Choking off immigration is severely as Cotton and Purdue and Trump are proposing to impose other costs. Fewer new workers would mean slower overall economic growth. The Social Security trustees estimate the number of seniors will grow from 48 million to now to 86 million in 2050. Under the current immigration laws, the Pew Research Center projects the working age population will increase through 2065 by nearly as much as 30 million. Pew estimates that immigrants who tend to be younger and their descendants will provide the vast majority of the increase. But if legal immigration is halved, Pew projects virtually no growth in the workforce. That means the same number of workers would need to support nearly 80% more seniors. That's a recipe either for unsustainable tax increases or big budget cuts in Social Security and Medicare programs indispensable to Trump's base. So I think to some degree they do know things are changing in this country. Um, But you can clearly see in the younger population, they already outnumber the whites in this country, and they know this. And this, and this has a lot to do with why they're acting so crazy across the country. But acting out on everybody else because you're shrinking and everybody else is growing, that's not going to do you any good. And it's not going to grow your population. It's not going to do anything um, to make your situation better. All it's going to do is make people resent you even more. You may be fighting for your survival, but fighting the population that's growing may be a fatal mistake at the end of the day. I'm just saying, I just don't see how economically you're going to turn on the population that's really going to be funding Social Security in the future. It's not going to get funded any other way. We certainly know from the way the white population is shrinking, you're not going to be the one making the biggest contributions to Social Security in the future. So, and you can talk all that, well, it may not be there. I've been hearing that from years. I heard that as a child and it's still here. So you can miss me with that. So, ladies and gentlemen, tell me what you think. The people of color are now the big booming population in America, and the elderly are predominantly white. Boy, I tell you, it's amazing to be able to live and witness these things happen as they unfold. But tell me what you think in the comment section. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can donate to my channel, please do. Peace, family.